let the disease break through.
Yeah. Okay. So the disease had been there, but the steroids had been controlling it.
Yeah, most likely. No one had ever made the diagnosis before.
Okay.
So that's, I think, the consensus.
Yeah.
All right.
Financial.
Is there any literature that you've read? Any?
Yes.
About Sherman drought.
But
No,
that
I just pulled this up.
connection, reducing steroids and
Well, I mean, this, no one's really thought about that for at least a decade. So what happened was when that drug first got released, they didn't find it in preliminary studies when they were developing the drug, but when it started to get used in wide use, obviously a bigger population. Morning, Wes.
Thanks so much for you, sir.
I wanted to find some pictures, but you found the picture on your own.
I did find some.
The only picture that I knew that I had that you wouldn't be able to find, but I couldn't find it in time, was a man named Jim Stroh Sr., who I mentioned.
Oh,
many
first
people.
allergist. Yeah.
Yeah, so his son gave me a picture of his father's deceased. So his son is even a few years older than I am and retired. But he shared with me, because Bill and I and somebody else, I can't remember, at one of our national allergy meetings when we had a private dinner, we sort of gave a history of allergy in the Northwest.
Ah, cool.
So I went back and got his picture. But,
Yeah.
okay, good.
I'd love to have it for the archives if you find it somewhere.
Okay, I'll try and find it.
Yeah, you're going to go in the archives. What does that mean?
It's hanging solar.
I'm so sorry. Right there. Oh, shoot. Or it could be a bad
Thank
bird.
you, too.
No, sorry, bad bird. Okay, tie's coming off. How are you, sir?
I'm
I
great.
see you like once a year.
Yeah.
And everything going well in the
It's going
department?
great. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
We're, Len knows this, and I'll talk about this today, but we're down to 3 candidates, I guess.
Right.
Oh,
For
good.
the bill,
For next year?
For the division head.
For the vision head.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay.
So it's 2 of the internal candidates, Anna Walls and David Tilley.
I don't know them personally. I mean, I asked Matt the other day if he knew what was going on, and he claimed ignorance. So,
Smart
And
man.
then there's an interesting outside candidate. She's an African-American woman who studies African-American access to care in North Carolina.
That's what brought me
And she would provide a certain amount of diversity to our department. And work well with our age group. Internal candidates, I got Thomas and Honor Allergy.
Well, we're being famous about diversity, okay?
Yeah.
Being a old hat like us. I certainly have it if you don't. It's on my arm. Oh, great. What a nice compliment.
so anyway,
So the general feeling is that the disease state has been there. It's the reduction in steroids that have been controlling it. Not necessarily Zola being involved, but Zola allows steroids.
yeah, and I would think that enough people put on Zola one time, steroid dependent and asthmatic, that this has come up before.
It has, but I mean, recently, I'm wondering why.
I mean, the Sherman drought is a rare disease, and you have to sort of be aware of, because you get eosinophilic granulomas in the lung, and you get peripheral eosinophilia, and you get tissue eosinophilia. I can look in the literature; it wouldn't be a hard thing.
Yes, I named it. Oh, boy.
But I know it's going to see you today.
I don't know if you would or not. A lot of people are
Then the first one, idiopathic.
You and others.
Well, Drew has got a number of people that he's been treating with it.
I know.
And, well, that's like Fox. Somebody was thinking it was.
Good. I think we
Basically
think so
ignored
too.
it, yeah.
I'm sorry, sir.
I mean, the idea that a drug that removes IgE can cause anaphylaxis, which is a disease caused by IgE, never made any sense in the first place. But, there are people who have had reactions. Some
Of course.
live on an island. I think they prefer to be an island.
I prefer to be on the island.
Take me to the island, please. Ask Ivy about it.
We actually told you.
She lives up there.
Hey, Lauren. But I was emailing you last night. I saw a relationship with Belle. We just put it on.
Since you're from Rhode Island,
Just put it on.
So, noxious stress, it is.
Back Thursday afternoon, but they should be.
That's good.
So I added them to the 9 because I'm with you and there's 2 community events. I told her to come at 8:45, so Devin out there a little
I
bit.
didn't. The last thing I saw was
Thursday.
reply.
Yeah, so that's why I had to do it. She doesn't have anybody that can take a picture at 2 hours. So that just comes back twice and she works on campus.
Oh, but you're not representing the product anymore?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
She's just as good.
Position. I'm glad you're here. So you see what we're doing because 105 here at your company's.
Yeah. Oh, Lahari, I added on a patch with anticipation to your schedule on Thursday.
Yeah, we'll work that. Christina just told me I wanted to see it.
Oh yeah, there's 2.
Well, this
No,
this
it's systemic syndrome.
You ready to put in that grant?
I think I remember I need to be volunteering to help out.
That's for education.
Okay, thank you.
Dr. Carter's not there this week.
So I think it'll be patients on Thursday, but it's you can always call on it. Of course. Mainly Andrew.
Mainly easier this week. How do I get? I agree with you. Okay, but I don't want to. I guess I should.
No, they must be finished.
Yeah.
Look at that. Oh, we got a double.
Today, that's my Anyway, we can help. We'll walk.
Well, I may do it pretty soon. Just tell you, I may you're So you're gonna have
It'll be funny because when I got it set up, all the students next door.
Good to meet you.
Thank you. Each got our personal problem.
She has 6, and Kathy had 2, so it's 8.
Oh, no.
I think she's supposed to find a way to do one.
Yeah.
Oh, so
So I just applied for Joel.
I apologize. It just came up yesterday. How long did it?
I don't think I've had one person say, no, on new call, I can't get anybody on that.
let's unify. We've gotten through it Friday. I emailed back.
Do you know if there's any
Over. I guess one approach.
Yeah.
Okay. He's alive still, right?
He was here before I came, certainly he was born in Arsdale.
When I read,
Yeah, I don't really know if he had a position at the university.
yes, so that's in the literature.
Teaching at the university hospital. But forever, really, most everybody, my generation,
And Suzanne have to see.
thinks of him as the first credible.
Is it causing or it's not? The
I
reduction
don't even know where he got his training. Many people
It's the
point
reduction
to
of
him.
hysteria.
That's not possible.
And our son actually was an endocrinologist.
Yeah, right, we wrote that to him, so he was
What you have to do is you can't, instead of like letting them rush you,
yeah, so he was
you like doing your own
chief
stuff.
of medicine.
No.
So what you just again before there was
You get it over with.
physicians to come back here and be appointed. I guess you can feel about
When are you gonna break the code on the peanut study?
It'll be probably by college.
And how quick do you think the government's gonna approve it?
I mean, there's no safety data. We don't have to. I don't remember.
yeah, Gary Ayers.
Yeah, I see her all the time. Yeah. She was with the Gates Foundation. She's still,
All I did was come back to this picture. What's this picture?
you know, she worked for Amgen and never left her without financial straits.
Driving farther waiting for traffic, stuck in another stop.
Well, maybe, I don't
I've had that happen before.
He does, I know that. They don't like it.
Yeah, I'm supposed to. Go around telling everybody else not to use it, and then we do it.
I didn't see it because I came early today.
Oh,
Like 6:40.
Well, we did just now.
Yeah, right.
Professorial.
I was up skiing the other day.
How was it?
It was good. Really
A lot
good.
of snow.
Tons of snow.
Yeah.
Too bad there aren't more people enjoying it, which I'm really excited at all.
They're already closed except for Friday.
Yeah. How many days do they make you ski?
I got a hat.
Yeah, I've never stayed there. Just a single night.
Quiet, settled.
Oh, it's gone.
Yeah, but it's
Yeah, I had all that
Trying to cover it Friday
stuff
night.
there.
On the scale of like,
It's fine.
As a weekend.
Nobody will remember it.
It's for public consumption.
No, we want to get a big trip.
Yeah,
My
that's-
husband's
I
birthday
did
is on
that
the
a couple
20th.
years
Oh, is that
ago.
right?
We have
Even
to
if,
go through
not by then, maybe in the next few weeks.
a lot for there.
Do you have any suggestions?
I need to get better
That's why
service.
Steve bought it.
I called him.
There's so many such options. I'm like,
April 9th.
Those are probably the Mary Jane.
how do you feel? And I was also looking at Santa Ana. But, can I tell you back for one island?
If you're just gonna go for a day, most people
To the end there, to 94, so. You were here in Eden. He was sick at the end.
Would you recommend like office or something? Even to stay there for a night?
they're both great. If you're trying to make kids that great, it's probably what you do. I mean, you really, for a small child, like, that I try to do one.
I got smoked by the new Tesla.
She says,
One day we were going to get the Black Creek.
You know what?
she just stepped in the gas. Yeah. She's about 100 miles an hour in probably 5 seconds. It's just incredible.
Let's get seated and,
My tail between my legs and my feet.
Thank you.
I don't have any significant announcements other than we're getting close to the end of the year. We're going to have an end of the year dinner party event. The last couple of years we've had it on upper campus at the faculty club, but they wanted too much money to rent the building as well as catering. So we're going to have it here, but in the first building across the street, we can use the whole lobby area and the auditorium. I haven't told the fellows, but you guys can prepare each of you about a 5-minute whatever you want about the fellowship or
Whatever you want.
yeah, so
Make it hilarious.
you can do pretty much anything you want. Today,
What date is that?
huh?
What's the date for that? Do you know?
Anybody know? It's the last one in May.
It's the 23rd.
23rd, right? So it's an evening event. It'll start at 6 in the evening. We won't have a morning session that day. I'll send out an email. So, Wes, I hadn't noticed that 10 years went by. I don't feel like I got 10 years older, but when I look in the mirror, there's no doubt that 10 years has gone by. So, Wes, I think everybody here knows, has been the chief of AID for that period of time and is stepping down. And from my perspective, at least, Allergy has had tremendous growth and excitement and improvement, a lot of which we owe to him. So I thank you very much. And I've asked him to review those 10 years and what he sees for the future of our division. So thanks very much, Wes.
Well, thanks, Len, for the chance to do this. And the word of the day is future, but actually a lot of the presentation is going to be focused a little on the past. And I have to really thank Len and Bill Henderson, also Matt, for providing some of the slides and the background on this. So So it has been 10 years since I was division head, and it's been a wonderful time working in partnership with Bill and Len to help build the allergy program, and I feel like it's in much healthier state now than when we started, where I don't want to say it was on life support, but we were, basically down to Bill and not much more at that point. And really, I feel like we're starting to serve the need of our patients, serve our research, and our training part is very healthy. So my one disclosure is that I've spun off a company called Paratherapeutic. It's an animal health company, so I imagine it doesn't have much relevance to human allergy, but if you're trying to treat cattle cryptosporidiosis, you probably shouldn't take a recommendation from me, because that's what our primary product is. Okay.
I just had one of them at my office, too.
Yeah, they're still there.
So I thought I'd talk about a short history of the division at large, and then a little bit longer history of the allergy division. So when I came back in, I came 31 years ago in 89, and somehow the math doesn't work right there. Oh, 86. I came in 86, and Seymour Klebanoff was the division head. He was, in fact, the first division head of the Allergy and Infectious Disease division. Prior to that, there were Bill Kirby, I believe, was running the section of infectious disease, and Paul Van Arsdale, as I'll talk in a moment, was running a separate section or division of allergy. But Seymour was the first division head for allergy and infectious disease, dating back to '76. He was actually an endocrinologist, but as was, I believe, Van Arsdale. But he was quickly impressed into duty for infectious disease because he was already widely known for host defense. He had discovered that white cells have myeloperoxidase. Myeloperoxidase is that thing that puts chloride on the proteins of bacterial proteins to kill them. It's actually what makes your sputum turn green when we have lots of white cells in our sputum. And he worked out that in a variety of mechanisms for white cell killing. He was a member of the National Academy of Sciences, and he won too many awards to really list, but he was my mentor and a lot of mentors of folks in the room, as I'll mention in a moment. He trained allergy and infectious disease fellows for nearly 20 years. And at that time, as far as I can tell, our allergy training and ID training programs were not separate. They were more or less fused. And many allergy and infectious disease leaders were really his fellows. Then Walt Stamm took over from Seymour in 1994 when he stepped down as the second division head. He was known for his urinary tract infection and chlamydia research, was the president of our National Society of Infectious Disease of America, and also was a winner of many honors and awards. And he left a legacy on really urinary tract infection, chlamydia research, many New England Journal of Medicine articles, some very clinical, some fairly basic. And just a little more detail into Seymour Klebanoff. This poster on the right, on your left, shows many of the mentees of Seymour Klebanoff, including Bill and Len here in the room, but a great number of people that were primarily allergists and a great number of people that were primarily infectious disease. And the list there that shows 15 professor, 6 division section heads, 3 associate chairs, 4 department chairs, 1 dean, I think that's Paul Ramsey, a VP for clinical research, Hughes investigators, the National Academy of Science. Those are all his trainees. So his trainees were really did wonderful things. and included many wonderful practitioners as well. Then this is Walt Stamm, who worked with Lori Tollefson at the time. I think Lori and two other people were the sum total of the AID administration at that time, but many of us worked with Lori for many years. This was Walt at his retirement party, where he's passed the hat to me. This is this fire hat is sort of symbolic of the chief of infectious disease, allergy infectious disease. So now back to where we were in 2007 when I took over. We already had 70 full-time paid faculty. At that time, we only had Bill Henderson and Rennie Carr working in allergy. We had about 35 million grants and contracts at that time, but it was that moment when I stepped in that it looked like I did a very bad thing for the division, because the next year our annual grants and contracts was about 16 million because Global Health, moving with King Holmes, took $20 million out the door. Fortunately, I don't look so bad because we were able to build up again to about almost the same grants and contracts, about 32 million. We've added another 25 full-time paid faculty, but one thing I'm really proud of is the allergy section has gone from basically Bill to now four full-time FTEs and a couple of part-time faculty members, as I'll mention in a moment.
Wes, I've always thought this is one of the biggest ID faculties in the country. 95 full-time people, so 91 of them are ID.
Yes.
Has that any other university have that many people?
I'm pretty sure not. It depends on how you count the Harvard program. They like to lump themselves together when it's convenient. So if you take all of the people at Brigham and all Mass General and
they don't like one another.
Yeah, they don't talk to each other, but at certain times they list everyone. So then I think they rival us. But we are, I'm pretty sure, the largest group. And it was interesting, there was a national survey recently that ranked UW as number 4 in the AID programs. And I think we're number 1, but they ranked us behind Hopkins, Harvard first, I think Hopkins second, and UCSD third. So it's not a bad company to be in, but I think clearly we're over them. Anyway, I'm not biased. So this is a breakdown. We had very few clinician teacher faculty. So just for those of you who aren't familiar with the breakdown, physician scientists are sort of us old school laboratory rats who spend a predominant amount of our time doing laboratory and then some time doing clinician and so on. For instance, I'm about 20% clinical, and I still take about 80% effort from grants. And that's pretty much a cross-section of about 85 out of our faculty. The clinician teachers, though, have been increasing in numbers, and these have largely been folks that are actually paid directly by the hospital and have a teaching role in running a major course or leading programs and that sort of thing. We have 6 research faculty, 10 acting faculty, and you could see the breakdown. We've had increasing numbers of full-time clinical faculty, which are folks that are doing predominantly clinical work and not as much teaching. And then allergy is one place where we have an awful lot of clinical volunteer faculty. Some of you in the room are those, and we're very appreciative for your efforts in this, in our endeavor. Without you, we really couldn't run our allergy clinics and our teaching programs. So let's delve into the allergy section more. I mentioned Paul Van Arsdale Jr. He was the first allergy section chief. At the time I think he arrived, Len was telling me he was an endocrinologist. He was sent back to Roosevelt Hospital to get quickly allergy trained. and then brought back to run the allergy. At the time, was a division, I believe, until they were merged when Seymour took over. He was known for drug allergy research, and particularly was predominant in penicillin and antibiotic training. And he trained over 40 fellows over his 40 years tenure. When Bill arrived, he was the leader then, right, Bill? Yeah. I'll talk about him a little bit more, but many Northwest practitioners are his former trainees. And then Bill Henderson is our current and was the second allergy chief, taking over in '94 when Van Arsdale passed on. Bill's really widely known for his seminal work in leukotrienes and eicosanoids and their role in host defense, and more recently has been working on biomarkers with many of you in the anti-IgE response and tried to predict who will actually respond to anti-IgE. We'll talk about that in a little bit when I talk about the research. Bill's been honored with many honors. He was the chair of the American Board of Allergy and Immunology, on the board of directors for AAAAI. Did I get enough A's in there? So a little bit more about Paul, because you guys know Bill pretty well. Paul Van Arsdale graduated from Columbia, and back when Williams formed the school here at University of Washington, he was one of the few, I think 5 or 6 people that were recruited in at the University of Washington. As I mentioned before, quickly trained into allergy and then impressed into duty running that side of it. And he was certainly a founder at the University of Washington Medical Center, which was built later, and served as the chief of staff there for a few years. In addition to patient care and lab research, he trained, as I said before, more than 50 fellows, published over 150 scientific papers and an important allergy textbook. Bill was telling me he was an Anglophile and loved visiting England, and was a visiting professor there during some sabbaticals and so on in London. And he was a member of the AAAI and the national president, Royal Society of Medicine in London, and House of Delegates for the AMA. So this is sort of what's happened over the last 10 years. I've already mentioned this. Sorry, my slides got a little rearranged as they got readjusted to a new version of PowerPoint here. But we started out with Bill, and Rennie was working part-time at that time, and now we're fortunate to have Bill, Drew Ayers, Matt Altman, Lahari Rangpur, all as full-time faculty members, and Len is working with us part-time in clinic, as is Rennie Carr. We're very grateful for all of that. That's helped us address our clinical needs, which I'll talk to in a moment. We are very proud that our allergy faculty are in the allergy top docs in the various surveys, including the most recent Seattle Met survey, Matt Altman, Drew Ayers, and Bill Henderson, and then in the Seattle Magazine's top docs in 2017, including Bill again. Bill seems to be on those lists every single year, so that's great. I should note that many of our clinical volunteers are on these lists too, and I regret not digging those out and listing you too. And then our clinical mission has really been expanding because of these needs. We, as you know, Dean Ramsey some time ago formed the UW neighborhood clinics, the UWPNs, and those patients have been seeking care at University of Washington Medical Center, but it's been very difficult to fit them in. Thanks to Matt and Drew's work and the faculty here, we've been able to get more and more of those patients into our UWMC and our Eastside clinics by expanding the number of clinic appointments and so on. In addition, You may know about the UW Accountable Care Network. There, the aim is to try and keep the care within the UW clinics, and again, we're trying to address the needs of those patients, and that's improved a great deal over the past 10 years, although we have a ways to go. And then I think even more important to our academic mission is really increasing access of care to complicated patients. So we have Children's recently started enforcing a policy, maybe that sounds too rigid, but they recently said that they really shouldn't be taking care of patients after a certain age. Is that 18 now?
21.
21? Okay. So they've been asking us to take on their complicated patients with CVID and other disorders in immunology. And those have been coming in. We have an expanding clinic at UWMC that includes a nice partnership, I would say, between the infectious disease group, who helps manage infectious complications, but the allergy group, allergy and immunology group, who are really managing their primary care to a great deal and helping with their day-to-day immune disorders. There are increasing numbers of patients with complex mast cell and eosinophilic disorders. Drew is taking on those as a special interest. He's also taken them on through research, which he's doing in collaboration with Asthma Inc. At the center at Northwest Allergy and Asthma Associates. We're providing anti-IL-5 under a protocol for hypereosinophilia at our clinic, and we're beginning aspirin desensitization protocols, which we have adopted here and involve quite a bit of complex care. So we see our role in helping the community physicians address these very complicated patients, as well as enrolling them in research and other protocols. And that's been a fantastic collaboration between many of you and us, and including Asthma Inc., which Asthma Inc. Am I saying that right? Yeah, which actually Drew works at, I believe, 1 day a week still, and works on enrolling patients there and so on. And then we have been working together with our antibiotic stewardship group. As you know, antibiotic stewardship has helped reduce the multi-drug resistant organisms at our UWMC hospitals. Part of that is just patients, and I'm sure you get lots of questions about this, who say, I'm allergic to penicillins. So we try and identify those patients. One of the ways it's easiest, actually, is every time somebody writes an order for aztreonam, that's usually a signal that somebody's carrying a penicillin allergy, and usually it's for the wrong reason. So Matt and Drew and Hari and Bill all provide inpatient consultation, and that's really actually helped reduce our pharmacy bill. We went back and traced the number of expensive antibiotics that were prescribed and then replaced with relatively cheap beta-lactams as a result, and found out that it was a savings of between $100,000 and $200,000 a year to our pharmacy. So this has been a big success, and we hope to continue it. But perhaps even more important than the cost savings is the effect it's having on decreasing the multi-drug resistant organisms. Then another part of our clinical mission has been our close collaboration with Children's, which has been going on for many years. Children's has, of course, provided a lot of training opportunities. They've been sending patients to Northwest Allergy and Associates, where they've been working in collaboration with us and training our fellows there. Our fellows do inpatient and outpatient rotations with Children's and NWAA, and they have been helping provide stipends and helping support our patients. And I believe that Drew is spending rotations at Children's, helping with their inpatient and outpatient needs, right, Phil?
And the food allergy challenge clinic. He's one of the attendants too, amongst many of the people here in the room.
Yeah. So Bill mentioned that the Food Allergy Challenge Network that Drew is providing one of the attendings, as are many of the people in the room. So in our status in our training program is really quite good. In 2011, about 6 years ago, the ACGME, or the Accreditation Council for Graduate Medical Education, awarded UW full reaccreditation and actually called out our program for other programs to look at as a notable practice for a wonderful collaboration between the University of Washington and Children's Medical Center and training people in allergy and immunology. At that time, the program was expanded to allow a third year for those who were really interested in continuing in allergy investigation. So the first year became mainly clinical training, with years 2 and 3 becoming focused research training, as well as continuity clinics to remain clinically adept. And this includes University of Washington, both at the main campus and east side, the South Lake Union, where a lot of the research is getting done, at Seattle Children's, in the hospital and the Research Institute, where many of our fellows train as well, and they're doing research, at Northwest Allergy and Asthma, and at Asthma Inc., as I mentioned before, at Virginia Mason, and at Benaroya Research Institute, and the Allergy and Asthma Immunology Center of Alaska. So all of those groups work together now to help us train our fellows, and I think it's a wonderful collaborative program that benefits greatly, and I think is really a showcase for University of Washington to have so many training sites and so many opportunities for both research and for clinical practice in allergy and immunology. So this is a list. This is a wonderful slide Bill gave me that goes over all of the fellows from when he arrived in 1978 till now, or we hope they're all the fellows, so I apologize if anybody's missed out. But just briefly, Marcia Fretwell was the first fellow Bill noted. She's now a professor of medicine at Brown University, and then I probably don't need to mention Gary Ayers, who's here in Bellevue, Michael Kramer, who's at the Spokane Asthma and Allergy Clinic, Susan Marshall, who's now, I believe, our Dean of Students here at University of Washington, Jay Springer at Northwest Allergy and Asthma Center, Frank Verant at the same, Jan Agosti, who recently left the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, but is still working in the community, Michael Kennedy at Northwest Allergy and Asthma Center, David Robinson at Virginia Mason, Dom Minotti at NAAC, Joyce Lambert at VM, Paul Williams at Northwest Allergy and Asthma Center, Jonathan Becker at Providence in Everett, Mary Farrington at VM, Brian Smart, who's in Glen Ellen, Illinois, at DuPage, Nora Hennig, who's Chief Development Officer at ProQR Therapeutics at Palo Alto, Nora Hennig, who's, I'm sorry, this is Marianne Sweetser, I believe. Yeah, sorry, thank you. At Alinium Pharmaceuticals outside of Boston, Karna Gendo, who's at San Ramon, California, Pandora Christie, who's at Swedish, Matt Lodewick in Berkeley, California, in allergy practice, Jan Storick, who's at University of Calgary in Canada, and Julie Malhotra, who's at Silicon Valley Asthma and Allergy at Mountain View, Thomas Scarborough at Montana, in Billings, Montana, Kelly Heatherton Simpson at Austin Regional Clinic, Allergy and Asthma, David Zhang at VM, John Liu in Stockton, California, Drew Ayers, who's here, Sally Newbrough, who's up in Bellingham, Fatima Khan, who's in Chicago, Illinois, Matt Altman, who's here, David Hagan, who's back at Tel Aviv Israel Medical Center and is now the leader of the allergy section there, setting up a training program. Aaron Ham, who's in Helena, Montana, Sydney Long, who's in Fresno, California, Lisa Winthrop.
That's Sydney.
Yeah. Did I get it wrong?
They're flip-flops.
Yeah.
They're flip-flops. That's Lisa.
Lisa Winterrath. She's the.
This is Lisa. She's here.
Oh, she's at Northwest Allergy. Sorry. And this is Sydney Long. Okay, who's in Fresno. Sorry about that. And then Daniel Petroni, who's here. Jake Lennington, who's in the room. Andrew Parker. Christina Swanson. Jay Patel. Jamie Rosenthal. And Taha Al-Sheikh. So
These last two people who haven't started.
Yeah. That's how you get it. That's why the word future is in the.
It's really impressive, actually, when you look at the number of people and the number of sites that are populated. So I think it's a very cool aspect. Anyway, so the Allergy Fellowship we're very proud of. Now we're taking about 2 to 3 allergy immunology fellows a year. The UWMC has stepped up to the bat with Children's to largely fund the clinical year. As I mentioned before, NWAAC and Children's are our training partners, and mentioned the option of the 3-year enhanced fellowship, with which 3 of our fellows have taken advantage of, as shown here. We have a continued issue of having no dedicated T32 training grant, but thanks to the largesse of many of you in the room, and particularly our fundraiser in chief, Lynn Altman, we've been able to raise funds for this through philanthropy and industry donations and so on. We're very grateful for donations from NWAAC and many of our industry partners too. Occasionally, an individual grant has been used to support a fellow, or Children's has paid for those that are there at Children's. But this continues to be a challenge for us, but there's some wonderful news along this line, which are 2 new fellowship endowments that have just come online thanks to the hard work of Janet and Rennie Carr and the Altman family. And you could see the amounts there so far, which include $165,000 endowed fund from the Rennie and Janet Carr Foundation Fellowship, and the Altman family fellowship is up to $279,000. That includes some matching funds from University of Washington. I'm sure if any of you in the room are interested, and I hope you are, you should talk to Len about how to best do this. He's really great at giving us all the team spirit. So that'll provide for the future, I think, for our fellows. We still have a bit of a gap, even with all these dollars, so we're hoping to raise even more. And I love this picture which Bill shared with me from the AAI meeting, including, you can point. So this character here, it says it's way past my bedtime. Here you are with your party sign, and Bill those are some glasses you've got on. This is terrific. It looks like you guys have a good time when you go away to the meeting. So, what's going on in the research mission here? Well, we're lucky to have this new building. And as you probably noticed outside our window, the University of Washington is building yet another building where we'll have additional research space. That's going to be 8 floors, including 5 of them dedicated to research, with some programmable space over there. Some of the folks from this campus are moving more to consolidate over there, so there will also be some of the fairly new buildings across the street that will be available. But we're happy to have the support of University of Washington with this new beautiful research space. And one of the things that's progressed along recently has been research on food allergy. Bill and others in the room have taken the lead on that, as I don't need to tell you guys about the current status of food allergies and how serious they can be, and how, though we have research pathways to desensitization, they're very long and prolonged and could use an additional boost from research. And Bill has been working in collaboration with David Baker, shown here. David's the head of the Institute for Protein Design. Personally, whenever I meet with him, I think he looks like he's about 12 years old, but he's one of the most brilliant guys I've met. His Institute for Protein Design can design proteins ab initio, that means from the ground up. So they take complicated proteins and can design how a protein should look. Then they can do in vitro testing of that protein and actually use targeted changes in it to improve it to have the action they want. And what Bill schemed up with David Baker was to use their nanoparticle technology, shown here in a recent science paper, to package together both allergens and immune suppressive type molecules that are exposed to basically deliver the allergen along with an immune suppressant signal to the cell. And it's really through this work and through an Institute for Protein Design fellow, who's working with Bill and David Baker to manufacture these nanoparticles. So we're hoping with this collaboration that we can come up with something that will lead to faster and better tolerization schemes for severe allergies. And I think the challenge has been trying to find startup funds for this focus, and that's become part of the focus of the food allergy network that's been meeting here in Seattle to look at that. Bill, do you want to say anything else about that?
We would like to jumpstart it with some large venture capital or philanthropy, so that's been a major part of this effort of this project. It's really cool design to develop these nanoparticles because you can complex them with peptides in particular of any allergen, food or aeroallergens, and then you can also package in things that would turn off a Th2 response at the same time. So it's got tremendous upside potential. But we're still in the development of developing the nanoparticles. Because they're novel proteins and go through animal testing and then eventually into human testing. So at this part of my career, I'd like to compress it as quickly as possible.
Great. And then Bill also is involved with many of you in the room on trying to find biomarkers to detect, the 40 or 50% of patients that don't respond well to omalizumab, anti-IgE therapy in chronic idiopathic urticaria. So we can use it in a targeted way in the correct population. So they're doing a prospective study of folks with chronic idiopathic urticaria and then looking at their white cells to look at particularly microRNAs and other transcription patterns that will help us identify the right kinds of people. This approach has really helped in a number of areas. One, in our area, in infectious disease, a pattern of RNAs has helped predict which patients that have latent TB will actually go on to active TB. We're hoping that a similar pattern can be found here in the microRNAs, which would help tell us what sorts of signals are there, as well as to predict the right patients to get the right therapy. And then Matt is our other chief researcher in residence. He does all of his work in collaboration with Arroyo Research Institute, a majority of his research. And Matt's been really focused on the transcriptional analysis of allergic and immunologic responses. And he's trying to answer the question, really, how do respiratory infections alter airway gene expression in pediatric asthma, to understand better what are the triggers, what are the early triggers leading to pediatric asthma. And his study goal has really been to collect from a prospective group of patients both nasal and peripheral blood samples to look at the immune pathways that are altered during respiratory virus infections and during exacerbation and non-exacerbation in kids with asthma. Then learn which pathways lead to asthma exacerbation, and ultimately really predict the responders and non-responders to therapy, but have a better handle on how to intervene early in kids so that they don't go all the way to full-blown asthma exacerbations. So he's done a longitudinal assessment with groups around the country. They've located patients that are particularly difficult to treat, and they're working in many urban areas around the U.S. Where they've taken many samples of both the peripheral blood and so on to look. And Matt's specialty has really been to pick out the expression and the mechanistic pathways that are important in this. So he uses a variety of things. Again, sorry for. Oh, it looks better on your screen than on my screen. Good. So he uses a variety of mechanisms: viral typing by PCR sequencing. Looks at cell differentials, both through differential machines, but also through very complex cytokine and cell surface analysis. Looks at mRNA sequencing, airway responses, and peripheral responses, and puts this all together into. I'll just jump to the next slide. A very simple diagram, as you can see here. But the important things are, so that the red represent the cytokines or immune modulator that are found in the blood and nasal cavity, and then there are a number of cytokines that look like they're, and signals that are very important in the nasal alone. He circled the ones that show dynamic change in gene expression around tissue types, and has been able to put together an interactome. And his skill really is in pulling together these patterns and making sense of them so we can act on them through interventions. And basically, he's been able to show that with cold symptoms that lead to exacerbations and so on, there's a type 1 interferon antiviral response in the upper airway and blood, as well as interferon response in the upper airway. And that colds with respiratory viruses present upregulation of co-stimulatory molecules from antigen-presenting cells and a variety of T-cell receptor signaling in the upper airway. And how virus-negative colds demonstrate upregulation of epithelial cell pathways, while the respiratory virus colds demonstrate downregulation. So he's shown that actually the virus-negative colds have a different phenotype, and that there actually are colds where you aren't able to isolate virus, but it has a different, almost autoimmune type response leading to it. So I think I'm very grateful for his addition to our research group here, and I look forward to you mentoring many of the allergy fellows as we go forward. We're in a brave new world where things are exceedingly complex like this, and we need master mathematicians and analysts like Matt's probably shuddering that I said that about it, but anyway, to analyze networks like this and help us understand how to act on them therapeutically. So I just want to highlight our second-year fellows who are here in the room. Jake Lennington has chosen to work with Troy Torgerson on immunophenotyping, carriers of hyper-IgM, immunodeficiency and other X-linked immunodeficiencies, and Andrew Parker, who's working with Teal Hallstrand on airway epithelial cells and eosinophil interactions from airway biopsies from patients with exercise bronchoconstriction. So in summary, really, I want to thank all of you who've made allergy really great over the last 10 years. And I want to say that I'm not leaving, and I'm going to be the chief allergy rah person in chief if the new head of allergy infectious disease isn't paying enough attention to allergy. I'll be there in the background pushing, because I think we have additional growth that we need to do to serve the expanding Northwest population, to train allergists for the region and for the nation as we have, as I demonstrated today, and to make our research and our critical population access continue to be present and part of the rich heritage that all of you are putting together here in the Northwest for allergy and immunology. So thank you very much, and thanks again to Len and Bill for providing a lot of the content, and Matt for letting me hack up your slides again.
Wes, again, thank you immensely for helping us with that growth over the last 10 years. And I was asked just yesterday by a colleague if the next chief was going to be as pro-allergy as you've been. And I'm glad to hear your closing comments that you'll be there pushing in the background if the new chief is not. Two people not in the room who I think should be mentioned for important work with food allergy are Dan Petroni and Steve Tillis, who have worked extremely hard in collaboration with industry, but in some very novel studies in looking about tolerance for food allergy. We're also our colleagues over at Virginia Mason as part of the Seattle Food Allergy Consortium. So a lot of people, some of whom are in the room, some not, who have pushed that effort a great deal in a more clinical way than the very interesting research that Bill's looking forward to learn how to tolerize people for food. So again, thanks. Anybody else? Everybody in this room has had something to do with the growth of allergy over the last decade.
I don't think there are many questions about a talk like that. It's quite a history education, but I find, I guess it's partly when you get gray and old that you get more and more interested in history and how did things become the way they are. So hopefully it was of interest to you folks.
One person you didn't mention, who was a mentor to me, and most of the young people here won't even know this name, Bob Petersdorf. You know who that was? No. He was chief of medicine here for 15 years. Nationally prominent, famous internist, also an infectious disease person. So he was important really in bringing some of these people to Seattle. I mean, this medical school was mostly started by Harvard, really. They kind of sent people from the Thorndike, part of the It's now the Boston Medical Center. We used to call it Boston. What's it called originally? One of the main 3 teaching hospitals at Harvard. So this medical school was mostly.
Children's, was it? Yeah.
It was
Israel.
Huh?
Beth Israel.
No, it's another
Brigham
Harvard
and Women.
teaching hospital.
Boston City.
Boston City Hospital.
Yeah, Boston City
Yeah.
Hospital. It was the Harvard view of Boston, but even more violent.
Yes.
I remember being a third-year medical student there, and yet at that time, you would draw the blood yourself. There was nothing like, anybody who did venipunctures for you or started IVs, and then you had to run the blood over to the laboratory. And I remember once in the basement of this building following a track of blood of somebody who had been stabbed in the streets and coming in the hospital. Anyway, these are unnecessary vignettes, but interesting the way medicine used to be. So anyway, Bob Petersdorf was sort of an important historical figure here for a long time, and then went back, interestingly, talking about the Brigham and the MGH, he went back to be the CEO of those 2 organizations when they merged into what's called partners, except the people at the MGH don't like the people at the Brigham and vice versa, so that works financially, but I don't think it works intellectually, so that job really never worked out. The powerful people of those 2 institutions didn't want a CEO managing the 2 of them. But he had something to do with bringing Paul Van Arsdale here and others of us here that really got us to the point that we're at today. So any other stories or vignettes?
I did my fellowship at NIH, and Shelley Wolf was the head of the lab there. He was the Mr. FUO. He trained Tony Fauci, was his right-hand man, and Bob Petersdorf was his good buddy. So Shelley Wolf, I was finishing up, and he just sat me down and said, "Well, you're going to go to Seattle. You're from the West Coast." And
No choice.
And I came out, flew out from Seymour Klebanoff, had a cocktail party, and I never even visited the med center, but I had a job and flew back to finish up my fellowship. So it was different days, obviously, back then.
That's how I got here. Bob Petersdorf told me you're going to be chief resident at Harborview, and just go there.
And Len, you mentioned Jim Strohs. Do you want to talk a little bit about him?
I never knew Jim Stroh Sr. I think most of us know his son, who's now a retired allergist in the community and was a partner with Rick Johnson, who's passed away, and Gary Ayers, and Pandora Christie was in that group. For whatever reason, sort of those of us who've been here long enough or have been told, Jim Stroh Sr. was sort of the first credible, trained allergist in this region. I don't really know where he trained. Frank, I don't know if you know any more about that. That was really before we had academic standards here. I don't know if he taught at the university or was just in practice, but when people talk about the history of allergy here, they usually point to his name and say he was the first well-trained, properly practicing allergist in the community, and then his son went on to be trained, not in our program. I don't know where his son was trained. That's really all I know about that, Wes.
Yeah, because Van Arsdale was really an endocrinologist, retreaded as a allergist, right?
Yeah, Bob Williams was the chief of medicine at that time. He had come from the Boston City Hospital and was the first chairman of medicine here, and I guess decided we need an allergy division. So he told Van Arsdale, who was really a thyroid endocrinologist, he said, go back to Roosevelt Hospital in Manhattan, where they had a training program, and learn how to be an allergist, which I guess he did in about a year, 6 months, something like that, and then come out here and be the chief. And that's the way this all began.
And like our allergy desensitization is all based on Columbia. There was only like 3 allergy centers in the U.S. Or I think it was University of Michigan and Columbia and maybe St. Louis. And all of our shot desensitizations, that schedule that's used throughout the Northwest is all right from Roosevelt Hospital from 1945 or something.
So Roosevelt was a Columbia teaching hospital in the city?
Was that Roosevelt Island, Bill? Yeah.
I think it was called the Roosevelt Hospital. I remember Paul Van Arsel always saying that's where they came from, part of
It's
Columbia.
a hospital, I don't even know if it exists anymore, on the upper
It probably
east
got
side of
merged
Manhattan.
into Columbia Presbyterian, I would imagine. But I mean, this is probably the mid-'40s or even earlier.
So, for you young fellows here, it's sort of a walk through history.
Thanks again for.
Well, thank you, Wes. I mean, Wes has done such a fabulous job for our section, so we're really indebted to you.
It's been great.
From the resident program. My mentor wanted me to go to Boston City Hospital, and the whole time I was there, the records said, "Why did they ever talk here?" I don't know, I just told me to come here. My Boston City interview said,
Hi, I just want to introduce myself.
they're all the same.
So, I appreciate being invited, and I know we're going to try to.
Is it right there on the campus?
No, Columbia's at 180th.
180.
Columbia Hospital. 180, 185.
Yeah, and it's available.
Columbia's at like 120.
Products
Yeah, it's available. And
So you think it was the original
for
teaching
atopic
hospital?
dermatitis, yeah, right now. And then.
At 180.
Trials
I think the original, that is probably one of the original hospitals, yeah. Because it's like old.
Old blood.
Oh, you walk in there and it's like old. It's like the old style VAs with like,
It's really old. Okay.
yeah, it's really old. It's interesting because their program now is not that big. Where's that allergy program? Pretty small.
They just started now. I think it must have gone out of phase over They restarted it or something.
They started, but they only have one fellow a year, and there's only like three faculty. Well, at Columbia.
And I know you wanted to see.
And I think that Cook was at Columbia, you know, cooking food.
Yeah.
Right now,
It was like one of those. There weren't many allergy programs, so it was.
Probably by the beginning of August.
yeah, please do. And,
Thank you.
Great to see you guys.
Good to see you as well. Thank you.
Hope there wasn't too much history.
Great.
It's great.
That is going to give the his, you know, because you just, we're living it, you know, I've lived it a lot longer, but, you know, it just kind of evolves and people come 30 years later and don't have to prove it. This is Paul Van Arsel, I mean. Oh, okay, yeah, have you sent them? I guess I send me the, I think you have an updated version here than my last one. So, yeah, that came out really
I think it was amazing. Okay, perfect.
But it was good. I think the plan and CGID is
Okay, great. Okay, perfect. Yeah, just let him get in hold of me and then we can help getting him signed up. Pleasure to be here.
Bill says he gets good feedback about.
You put on nice. So we do for commercial patients, we have
Sometimes we forget the phrase.
annually. If patients are uninsured, we have a patient assistance program.
Yeah, patients, super
And
reports back.
that's pretty much
yeah,
the two options.
did a great
In
job.
most cases, what we're finding
Sure.
so far, the
It's amazing how complex our patients are getting.
they're just
Oh my gosh,
That's
yes, I know. It's
amazing difference. You know, this was pretty bread and butter allergy 10 years ago.
Being administered.
I think in those days we had mainly Hall Health was our big referral one, you know, so you got healthy college kids, you know, it was asthma, rhinitis, and now the networks and just the whammy consoles and everything. Very, very.
I'll send you an email.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, nice to meet you. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, our fellows, I just feel so totally confident they can handle anything, once they finish it.
Not the average ripping off.
All right, I gotta go bike over to the main campus.
Yeah, thanks for coming over, Russ. Appreciate it.
And again, Larry gave me a list, and I know you're on it.
Yeah,
Well, you
we
can
want
walk
to talk
into
to
it.
this
Thanks for
gentleman.
filling
So
out.
Henderson's been here this about as long as I have.
Hi, Joe.
I'm a
You know.
writer, and
Yes, yes.
this is it, right?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that they
Me,
support.
I would be interested because I want to be able to talk about the infectious disease
I like yours too.
program.
I mean, this is the best part of the whole
So
thing.
Perfect.
You stay here, right? All the
I have
others
to-
just
Follow
all
it
right.
and get into touch with anyone
Oh,
talking
sure.
to you about it. Okay, and just
Yeah, another one.
Four, right?
actually, give me your email. That would be great.
Larry
Larry gave me a bunch of names. Larry talked to Milo a minute.
There's no space, you know.
Yeah, there is. I have
I'm a writer at Fred Hutch, and I know Larry and
Infectious.
I would be
It's been a while since I've been there. It's the fifth floor. It's over actually.
And so I saw this talk was happening, and I thought, oh, let me come and sort of meet some people. So I would love to follow up and talk with you and talk with these guys who have been here as soon as I've been starting to tell me about volunteers. Okay, I hear those.
Larry Curry and I bought Stan Mahler at the same time, the same year, 78 or 77.
I haven't used it.
Great, thank you so much. I will be in touch and try to set something up. And
The more here, then I know it's.
Yeah, because I can do this, but
That's a good
give you a
together
message.
this kind of
Let's,
narrative history of how
well,
this place
Francis.
got started and what makes it as outstanding.
Yeah.
I mean, how did,
I'll send it.
how did this place become known for infectious diseases?
I'll just send it to Drew.
And it's just an interesting story, I think.
Thank you.
Yeah, there's people there like David Dale, who was part of that pipeline between Petersburg and NIH. There was quite a few people there.
Last name
Richard
is-
agreed to, for sure he's passed on, but that was probably one of the major things. Peter Stewart and Shelley Food, St. Jim Cheese, and this guy in West.
Already won
He's like
some more.
chair of the Board of Internal Medicine. He was ID here and at NIH.
I'll run it up to NAC a little later.
It was an old boys network at that point. And
As
I
most
like
things
ID,
were.
I was just sort of told to come here.
I know, I love that story. It's like, you'll go see it.
I didn't know he did. He said I'd interviewed. He said you either go and I've got big friends here, but I've
When
also
am I
got
shopping?
at Yale and at Harvard. You can go to any one of these.
No.
It's going to be in the car all day.
Just didn't argue. I mean,
What time
he
do
sat
we
around
get
for
there
like
tonight?
the
Well, there's a
Godfather, the
baseball
kind of,
game
yeah.
at 13.
And he just sort of
There's a
he
baseball
sat
game
there.
that
He
starts
just,
Samara's game at 7:15.
he just
but
did
the
what
Valley
he said.
So I think you can.
Well, it's a bit further uptown. It should be.
And there was also that big connection from CDC. There a lot of them. Walt Stan, they were all CDC officers, and they all came here too. I think it was a similar sort of a deal. There's only a few handful of training programs, that were academically applied.
All right.
In
I mean,
a
it's just
variety of these areas.
I visited the CDC.
I'll project the slides.
Gosh,
if
was
we
it
have
last
to,
year?
but,
I was in Atlanta,
try and make
and
conversation.
they have this this
And I want to
hallway
be
of
like
history
complaints.
down in
Well,
the
they
history
didn't call you
museum of
complaints.
CDC.
But if they do show our good work is
They have these
complaints.
posters that were made called EIS officers, people that were there translating.
Do you want me to
And there's one that was made by Larry
Uh,
Coy and Walt.
Consolidate, and at least this one
And
has
it's
a
just
color.
hilarious. I have a picture of it.
Oh, that's great.
It has all their names and stuff, but it has
It's in the.
it's a little obscene, so forgive me, but It has a picture of,
Do you want me to take
of
this
a
to
big
your office?
probe hooked on.
I'm going to drive up there.
Well, not a
just
picture,
pack it. You can help me
actual
carry it in my
foil,
car.
Sculpture of a big probe, and it says, you know,
Want me to take the
to
copies?
properly experience what it's
Oh,
like
that's
to
fine.
write a paper at the CDC, take this out and put it out where the sun doesn't shine and run 1,000 volts of electricity through it. Oh, they all have sort of humorous anecdotes on their faces. There's a graphic.
That's amazing. Well, have you talked with Mark Turk?
I have had one phone conversation with him, and I want to follow up.
He can fill in all that kind of
Actually, it was lovely. I actually was calling just to kind of introduce myself and set up a time, and then we ended up like talking for an hour. It was great. So yeah, I have had one talk with him, and definitely want to follow up. And when I talk with you, I'll ask you for your recommendations on other folks to talk to too. So thank you both so much. I look forward to being able to.
Let me give you my email.
Oh, excellent.
So it's just LCA
LCA.
at NW.
Now, I took this job, I never went to the hospital or anything.
I think I came almost a similar thing this week for that deal, but I had applied to 6 fellowships.
I got one thing for them, but I'm going to be out of town that end of the thing. I'm going to family graduation thing in Michigan. So,
Well,
we can have Drew.
why don't we have Drew give whatever you want us to talk about?
Yeah, because I mean, Wes is giving a great everyone through kind of stuff we would typically talk about the news. So,
Well, I mean, I'm going to ask each of the fellows, you heard me say.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if they each talk for 5 minutes, that's probably enough talking.
and we'll have Drew. He can talk about the incoming fellows.
Bye, nice
Okay,
to
nice to meet you.
Well, I'm going to hope Jamie will come. I mean,
That'd be
now
great.
she ought to come and introduce herself.
Was it May 23rd?
I believe so. Is that a Tuesday? Yeah.
Do you want me to save that date?
Yeah, it'd be great if you could come. We're going to have it in the 850
Yeah.
building.
That's fantastic.
I have to talk to
We're
the
going to do
caterer.
the same thing for our Kirby lecture.
I got a price of about $2,500 to cater it, but I'll work with her to bring the price down a little, and I'll get people to donate the wine, so I don't have to pay for that.
Where do, which caterer do you use? The one on campus? Or?
No, our office has used a caterer when we have what's called the Pearson dinner. One of the guys in our group who passed away, Bill Pearson. So it's an outside caterer. I forget what the name of it is, but I can get it to you if you need it.
Yeah, well, we're looking into catering our thing too, so.
Okay. Well, Frances knows. Frances made the contact.
Okay, great. All right.
just
So
ask
she's
Frances.
probably helping them already.
Right.
Because they're good friends.
Yeah, they've done a good job.
And I don't need to come if you don't need.
I'd like you to come.
But,
That'd be great.
I can
Just,
provide some gray hair.
Yeah. Why don't you come and whatever? There'll be some different people there. You know, you could just give a 5-minute condensed statement of whatever you want.
I can just
Yeah.
thank you and say how important you are to the vision. Yeah.
All right. Well, this was. Thank you very much for doing this. I
Oh.
think our young people learned a lot.
It's the most fun for me.
You know, we teach them academics all the time, but we don't
Yeah.
teach them the history of how we got here. And when you get to have enough gray hair or get old, those things become
Yeah.
important. I mean, certainly
When
the
you
guys
think about 54, I don't know when the actual, I have to look at that plaque when Jim Sturr Sr. was here. It's probably 50, going on 70 years.
something like that.
That'll probably be at
60 years, I guess.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, great.
How long, I guess as long as the ID, I mean, what's the length of the ID would have been going at the same time?
Yeah,
I would
Bill
think.
Kirby was brought in too in 53, 54, something like that. So about the same time as Marsdale.
I got to meet somebody at home setting, redoing, we remodeled our kitchen, and now I got to have the security system.
Oh, good, okay.
So they said they're coming between 8 and noon. I don't think they're actually.
Yeah, it's a typical big window there.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Wes.
Thanks so much, Wes.
You bet. My pleasure.
So you didn't, when you came out, how did that work out?
Oh, I was just going to say, so Seymour.
From the Rockefeller?
I knew Seymour from the Rockefeller, and he was just so warm and inviting. he had me out. I think he had, like Len, like you described, had me do a cocktail party at his house or something. And I don't even think I don't even know. Did I go over an interview with people? I think I spent a day talking to people like King and so on. And then
okay. Yeah, I didn't meet
called
it.
me up like the next day.
Peter
and said-
Zerf was at the cocktail party.
Yeah.
I mean, it was like a little routine.
And it was
they had.
before the match. So then he just said, well, if you want to come, you're in. And I said, great, I'm coming. And so, it was crazy. And I called up all the other places I'd applied and just said, no, I think I'm not going to interview.
Right. Yeah, I canceled mine. I had one at Harvard and one at Yale, and I just said, sorry.
At the time, I hated doing it to my fellow house officers, right, who had to do double the work that we were on interviewing. Because there wasn't a day of having coverage or anything, right? It was just like everybody sucked it up. And
You just kind of did that.
Yeah.
Yeah, medicine's quite. I mean, I wrote a R01 with Seymour while I was a fellow, and it got funded.
Wow.
It was just from back there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just.
Yeah, things have changed. Those were the days, when if you had somebody's name on it, the committee said, "Oh, this guy's great." They barely read the science, right?
It was a lot smaller deal, the whole thing. Everyone. Well, those are the days. You probably don't even remember those, but all they had was the Atlantic City. Did you ever? No, I never went to those. Yeah. So that's where everyone. It was a better situation because then all your fellow house officers, if they were in the car,